You're listening to the Hog Sports Network Daily Podcast. Now, here's your host, Matt Jones.
And then I saw they were 2 for 22. Was it an ugly game? Or was it a game that was exciting? It was like both, an ugly, exciting game. I don't care. It could be an ugly, ugly game, and I'm happy. We're moving on.
John Calipari after the 24th Rigatoni Marinara Classic. Did I say that right?
Yes, that's what Dick Vitale called it. Yeah,
that's what he calls the Calipari-Patino matchup. So Arkansas moving on at the NCAA tournament, going to play Texas Tech on Thursday. Time announced late last night. 9:09 Central tip-off time, approximately. And that's assuming that Florida and Maryland at the same site in San Francisco gets over in a decent amount of time. But the Razorbacks going to play Texas Tech on Thursday night with a chance to move on to the Elite Eight. Anthony Kristensen is here in studio with me. Anthony flew back from Providence yesterday. He's got time to wash his your underwear and get back on the flight tomorrow to San Francisco.
I've got time for a cup of coffee, which is right here under the table, and do some laundry. I get to hang out with my dog for a little bit before he goes back and hangs out with Christina and Corey's dog, so that's nice. And I'm also going to go to the women's basketball press conference later today and do some stuff there. But overall, not a lot of time to sit down and do nothing. It's time to hop on another flight to San Francisco, which I'm not going to complain about. I get to go to San Francisco for the first time, so it'll be fun.
I've always been fortunate enough to have a washing machine at wherever I live, whether it be a house or an apartment or whatever. The only time I've ever used a laundromat was in Omaha during one of those extended College World Series stays. These can get a little interesting.
Yeah, I do have a laundry machine in my apartment. My apartment now. Mm-hmm. My apartment in Evansville, laundromat.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Yeah, I had to use one in Omaha for one of those long stays there, so I certainly get it. Your thoughts on St. John's game? Arkansas wins 75-66, and I'll be honest, I'm at a baseball game when all this is happening. I'm covering baseball. I'm trying to keep a side eye on basketball, so I'm looking at it every now and then. I'm basically able to see kind of 20 seconds worth of plays, and then I'm looking away. And from what I could tell, and I went back and watched some highlights that I could find, but from what I could tell, it was a very physical game, probably more physical than you would have expected. And we've got a soundbite here in a second that we'll play from John Calipari, basically saying that a lot of teams have found out this year that Arkansas is more physical than they thought they would be, and I think St. John's probably found that out on Saturday. Because everybody thought going into the game that St. John's could potentially bully and push Arkansas around.
Yeah, no, I thought Arkansas did a really nice job with the physicality aspect of it, especially when you look at earlier on in the season, especially early on in SEC play when Arkansas was the team kind of getting pushed around and bullied, especially you look at that Tennessee game when they had, I don't remember the exact number, they were out-rebounded by 482. So there was that, but I mean the physicality aspect of things has certainly improved. I know you probably wouldn't want to see Zuby Ejiofor have the game he had. He was really good. I know people were upset about the lack of foul calls against him. It's a little tough to see when you're right there courtside, which is why I'm happy I'm not a referee. But I mean, he was phenomenal. Obviously, 23 points, 7 of 10 from inside the arc, and I mean, it was a game that was won kind of down there in the paint, in the trenches, if you will. So it was fun. I mean, it was not the prettiest game, as John Calipari said. It was ugly, but it was entertaining. Cinematic is what I called it. But the teams combined for, I think it was 4 of 41 from the 3-point line. So screw you, analytics.
So John Calipari moving on to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament for the 16th time in his career. First time, though, since 2019, whenever he took Kentucky to the Elite Eight. Of course, had a run of bad luck, if you will, or poor play. I don't even know what you'd call it, but the last 4 years at Kentucky weren't great. He had a team that I think was pretty good in 2020 that had a chance to go far, and, of course, the tournament got canceled that year. This is what he had to say, though, about the win and about the Razorbacks moving on.
There are some games we played this year where the other team said that was a physical team. And I told them and reminded them of that. I know St. John's is physical, but we're physical too. The second thing we talked about at halftime is first 5 minutes of this half, we got to get them to call a timeout. And these kids came out and executed, got some rebounds. Now, I don't know if any team that I've coached in a while had 28 offensive rebounds. I take that back. Tennessee did. Tennessee, they had 28 offensive rebounds, and we still won, which is crazy. Rick did a great job with his team all year. If they made a few shots, they probably beat us. So we were fortunate to get out. But I'm proud of these guys, and all of them here had to overcome stuff. And they did. They did because they're good guys. They've been raised right. And they knew they finally, not at the beginning of the year, that we absolutely need each other or we're going down together. And they became one heartbeat. Now, all of a sudden, whatever the team needs, they figured out that if I worry more about the team and less about myself, man, I play better. And so, but it took time. And Carter, you were terrific today, Billy, Nelly. It's a good win.
John Calipari, after his 59th NCAA tournament win, that's the most among active coaches. Of course, he and Bill Self were tied with 57 coming into the tournament. Calipari with 2 more. And every coach needs a good one heartbeat speech at one point in the season, and he got his in.
Yes, he did. Yeah. And he mentioned the team kind of coming together. They've gone through what they've gone through with the injuries and the 0-5 start in SEC play, and I think you look at it now and it looks like a completely different team. So yeah, one heartbeat I think is the way that they're playing. At least that's the way it looks. Yeah,
Houston not always one heartbeat, man. You'd always give a good one heartbeat speech. Usually once a game, I think, instead of once a season.
You got to pick and choose your moments.
Yeah,
you don't want to get stale.
So, what? As we look forward to, well, first off, I want to go back. St. John's, it was basically a home game for them. I mean, would you say they're
yes?
To give people an idea, it's you can, and of course, in Northeast travel is different than it is here because you get trains that are obviously more prevalent there. But it's a fairly short trip. If you were to get in your car, assuming you have a car in New York, and drive to Providence, probably about a 3-hour drive or so.
3.5-hour drive from Queens to Providence.
Okay, so and it's a small arena, 12,000. St. John's is a university of affluent alumni, and so it was a home game in a small intimate arena.
It was MSG East, yeah.
It's interesting you say that because they also play at Carnesecca Hall.
Yeah, they do, but their prominent home games are at MSG.
But don't they play more at Carnesecca, right?
More of their non-conference, yeah.
I'm just saying, like they play more home games there. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like if Duke comes to town, they're going to play Duke at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, they're going to play that at Madison Square Garden.
UConn.
They played more games at Carnesecca this year because they wanted to do all of the honoring of Lou Carnesecca, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm. They had patches on for him on the game the other day.
Yeah, but yeah.
So it was a home game for St. John's basically. But did it feel like a hostile game with the way that Arkansas defensively was able to take St. John's out of it? Because if you're not scoring, a lot of times it's hard for your crowd to get into the game.
A little bit. I think it was. I mean, it was a great environment. Obviously, there was a good amount of Arkansas fans who traveled and made the trip as well. So I don't want to take away from them, but it was I think fairly obvious that it was a pro St. John's crowd, and it was. I don't know that I would say that they got hostile towards the St. John's team at all. I think they were trying to will St. John's into better offense. I didn't hear them booing or anything, unless they disagreed with the call or something, but. No, it was an awesome environment, and I mean the whole week there. I mean, was just incredible. I mean, I'm going to keep it brief, but I mean every team that was there had a wonderful fan base, had a lot of great interactions, met a lot of awesome people, and it was incredible.
Rick Pitino on the loss the other day. Pitino and his St. John's team finished with a 31-5 record, and you'll hear here in this soundbite kind of the frustration, the hurt in his voice that such a great season has come to an end.
Foul trouble certainly hurt us, but they were the better team. They outplayed us, and they deserve to move on, and we don't. That's what March Madness is all about. Sometimes, no matter how great a regular season you have, you play this way and you're going to get beat. So, but I'm very thankful and that I had these two guys on my team. And Arkansas moves on and we don't.
Tough couple of days for Patino. He was in Cleveland last night whenever New Mexico lost to Michigan State.
That was a great game.
Camera cut away to what I assume is Rick Pitino's granddaughter, and she's got tears in her eyes. And anyway, tough back-to-back days for the Pitino family, losing in the second round like that. He didn't play R.J. Lewis down the stretch, and a lot of people wondered why. It's a second-team All-American, Big East Player of the Year, easily St. John's best player. And the reporter was asking him, he said, "You're asking leading questions. You know why I didn't play him." And basically it was because he just didn't play well, 3 of 17 from the floor. And I think that's a credit to Billy Richmond and the defense that he played.
Yeah, Billy Richmond and Carter Knox both. I think they both kind of took turns guarding R.J. Lewis, and that's a tough guard. I mean, he's awesome. And you hold a guy like that to 3 of 17 from the field, you're doing something right. And, he was just completely – I don't want to say completely nullified because he did have some moments, but – yeah, Arkansas did a really nice job guarding him.
And the freshmen, they led Arkansas. Carter Knox had a big game. I think he led them in scoring with 16. Billy Richmond had a good game. Boogie Fland looks like – he looks like he didn't miss any time. He looks like the Boogie Fland from before the injury, maybe even a little bit better than he looked that last week before he had the surgery. This is what John Calipari had to say after the game Saturday about the freshmen leading the Razorbacks in this second-round win.
Well, they're not afraid. And they want to prove themselves. I don't believe any of them were all freshmen in our league. Is that true? I think they have a little chip on their shoulder about that. But they're talented. Billy just has a different mindset. Like, if I turn it over, so what? He goes on to the next play. Carter and Boogie are still... they're freshmen. If they miss 2, they end up missing 5. You know what I'm saying? But Billy, now, the other side of Billy doing that is he'll turn it over some. Like, why'd you try to do that? I thought I could do it. The lob we had late where DJ wouldn't throw it, Billy would throw it. Now, he may throw it over the backboard, but he would throw it. And, they're fun to coach. I mean, I told him this is as rewarding a year as I've had. Based on the fact of how far we've come and that these kids believed in each other. Told them many times, you're never going to disappoint me. Just go play. We'll figure stuff out.
I think Billy Richmond is my favorite player to watch on this team, and it's been that way all year. And early in the season, why does this guy not get more minutes? Because the hustle that he brings to the floor, it just feels like it's contagious to the other players whenever he's in the game. And as he's gotten more polished as the season has gone along, it's not lost on me that his minutes have increased and the team has won more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he's been phenomenal. I think just for a while now. Maybe not the most polished play against Kansas, if I remember correctly. That Kansas game feels like it was years ago. But it's, he's an energy guy. I mean, he brings a lot to the floor. His ball handling, I think, has improved exponentially since he had to take on a lot of that role when Boogie Fland went out. Excuse me. And I mean, his defense has always kind of been there. I think that's kind of what made him such a prized prospect coming out of high school was his defensive work and just how good he is on that side of the ball. And I think you're really starting to see that all come together. And then he was obviously phenomenal against St. John's and limited R.J. Lewis, obviously, but also I think everybody thought he had a phenomenal game offensively. He also had 9 rebounds, 16 points, just the 1 turnover as well. So, he's been very good, and he's fun to watch. He's fun to talk to as well. He's got a personality when you got him one-on-one in the locker room or after a game. So that makes it all the more fun. But his development, I think, has been somewhat emblematic of the teams. A little bit inconsistent at first, and now he's come on and really, really kind of made himself a big factor.
So Texas Tech on Thursday night, put a pot of coffee on, maybe 2, for how late this game's going to tip off. But the Red Raiders 27-8 overall. They went 15-5 in the Big 12. You look at their schedule, not a whole lot of common opponents with Arkansas. Texas Tech lost to A&M. Arkansas lost to A&M. Texas Tech defeated Kansas. Arkansas defeated Kansas. Tech beat Baylor twice, including once at the conference tournament. Arkansas lost to Baylor early in the year in Dallas. This is a different team, or a different program, much different program, I would say, since the last time that Arkansas and Texas Tech played. It wasn't very long ago. It was just 4 years ago. But Chris Beard was their coach then. It was his last game as Tech's coach. They went through Mark Adams, and then they move on from him, and now they've got Grant McCasland, who is familiar to Arkansas fans because we saw him come through here a couple of times with North Texas teams,
and he was an Arkansas State coach.
Yeah. What do you see from Tech, and what do you think about this matchup?
They're fun to watch, man. Like, they've got an insanely efficient offense. I think they're fifth most efficient offense in the country. They play at a little bit of like a slow to moderate pace, but they can get out in transition and beat you there. JT Toppin was a second team All-American, so he's awesome to watch. And I was really intrigued by their matchup with Drake because, I mean, Grant McCasland and Ben McCollum, who's now going to Iowa, they're friends, and they've kind of built their philosophies together. So to see those guys go up against each other was really fun to see because they play similarly. Drake plays really slow, and I think obviously, like I mentioned, Texas Tech kind of plays a slow to moderate pace. So it was interesting to see that. But yeah, Texas Tech has a lot of different weapons. They play a shorter rotation, a little bit like Arkansas does. Kevin Overton's really the only guy on their bench who gets more than 8 to 10 minutes a game. But you look at, I mean, Darian Williams, he was good against Drake. Chance McMillan. I mean, they've got a lot of weapons, but JT Toppin's the guy for sure to watch. And then they've almost got dual head coaches. I mean, Jeff Linder, who was the coach at Wyoming for a while, led them to an NCAA tournament. He's the associate head coach there, and obviously Grant McCasland has veto power, and they've acknowledged that, but. Jeff Linder is kind of in charge of their offensive schemes, and I think that's kind of why you see this team have so much success. Is just, I mean, that combination of things.
You see who's calling the game on TBS?
I did not.
Kevin Harlan.
Oh,
which means
baby.
that
Let's
this
go.
game has got a chance to be nuts. It seems
it's
like
going to be incredible. Then
it seems like he is a magnet for just great endings.
He's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best in the business, and I didn't know that until you just told me. Now, baby, let's go.
You're not going to hear it though because you're going to be there.
I know, but you know what? I'll watch the replay.
Kevin Harlan, Stan Van Gundy, Dan Bonner are going to be on the call. Lauren Shahadi will be the sideline reporter for Arkansas and Texas Tech on Thursday night. We'll talk a lot more about this game as we go throughout the week. You can read all of Anthony's basketball coverage at WholeHogSports.com. We're sending him and Ethan Westerman and Hank Layton, our photographer, out to San Francisco tomorrow. Quick turnaround. They'll have a press conference Wednesday in San Francisco, and of course the first game, or the next game of the NCAA tournament, the Sweet 16, on Thursday night. When we come back, Bubba Carpenter will join me here in studio. We'll talk about Arkansas baseball and its SEC sweep of South Carolina. But first, a word from our sponsors.
At Kindle King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kindle King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kindle King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Hey, welcome back. I want to tell you about our friends at Bentonville Glass, professional, committed, versatile. They've been serving their community since 1971, and if you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas or looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. You can come by and see them now at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. Bubba Carpenter's in studio here with me now. Razorback baseball, 23-2. 5-1 in the SEC, moving up in the polls. The ones that have come out already today, Razorbacks are number 2 behind Tennessee. And, boy, what a start for them to this conference season, beating South Carolina 3 times this weekend. Final scores of the games, 12-2, 12-3, and 11-4. Think about this, Bubba. South Carolina scored 9 runs the entire weekend. Arkansas scored at least 11 in every game.
It's crazy, isn't it? I don't know if I've ever remembered this many numbers being thrown up. I mean, you think about last week, Ole Miss, this week. I mean, 35 runs, 41 hits over the weekend. Now, the park played a little bit small yesterday, but that's some big numbers.
They did to South Carolina starting pitching what Ole Miss did to Arkansas starting pitching the week before. With Arkansas go 9 1/3 at Ole Miss combined between the three starters. And South Carolina this weekend, I mean, they had a pitcher didn't make it out of the first. And then I don't think either of their other starters made it more than three. This was it's impressive what Arkansas was able to do to those starters. I know they had a little bit of a hiccup with their starting pitching yesterday. Their guy that was supposed to throw, Dylan Eskew, a right-hander, and I watched this happen. Did you see it happen?
I didn't see it.
I saw it happen on Saturday. I just happened to sit down and I was watching out there, and Kennedy Jones, who is one of South Carolina's hitters, he's taking batting practice. And on his first swing, he hits a home run into the bullpen, and Eskew is turned around. I didn't know it was him at the time because he didn't have a number on his back. But what was happening? He had those weighted baseballs, and he was throwing them against the back of the bullpen. And so he had his back turned to the batters. This ball goes into the bullpen, hits him right square in the back of the head, and knocks him down to a knee. And everybody who's watching batting practice at that point, there's like this audible groan throughout the ballpark. And he gets up, and Paul Maneri walked out and talked to him a little bit. I mean, he goes into concussion protocol. He wasn't feeling good when he woke up yesterday, and so he wasn't able to pitch for him. I mean, it was talk about I've never seen that in a baseball game.
I've never, in the minor leagues, we warm up while the other team's hitting. Even with balls like that, we had people guarding us while we're warming up, and it's crazy to me. And so I was talking to Paul Maneri yesterday during BP, and he was talking about the little things. He said, these guys haven't bought into the fact that the little things matter. And he said, look out there right now. And there were 2 or 3 guys throwing with their back to the hitters, and no one's guarding them. Like, no one's, watching. You got to have someone in front of you.
Even in the bullpen?
Yeah, even in the bullpen. You got to have someone in the bullpen watching. Someone should be sitting right there on the bench saying, hey, heads up, here it comes. I mean, at least in my opinion.
That's just bad luck, though. I mean, think about just like the percentage of a chance that you have of standing in the bullpen and one of your guys hitting you in the back of the head, right in the middle of your back of your head. I mean, it's like 0.00000, however many zeros and then a 1 at the end.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, balls are flying out of the park left and right. Yeah. I don't know. I look at it as it's an accident, but it's one that could be avoided.
It's like the old home run derbies, where they hit the ball here, and if you hit the ball here, everybody gets like some sort of prize or something, and nobody ever hits it there.
There was one ballpark I played in that had a little hole. Hit it here, and you get like $10,000 or $25,000. I don't remember what it was. I remember always thinking, "Gosh, I want to hit that."
Wasn't there Durham? Isn't like the old Durham ballpark? If you hit the bull,
yeah,
some sort of
you
big
win
prize.
A steak if you hit the bull. So,
so what do you think we learned this weekend?
I learned that our defense is really good, and I love the offense. Don't get me wrong, I love it. I love our offense top to bottom. I love how we got guys that can go the other way. I love our 2-strike approach. I mean, battling. You look at Maxwell and Cahil, those two and that one at bat. Maxwell saw 12 pitches. He swung at 11 of the 12 pitches, by the way.
Fouled off 10.
Yeah.
He's the souvenir man. That's what I've called him ever since Arlington. Because, I mean, it seems like every at-bat that he comes up, unless there's catcher's interference, he's going to get about 4 or 5 foul balls off.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive. Behind him, he ends up getting a base hit. Cahil, 11 pitch at bat. And when you watch Cahil swing early in the year, I never thought that guy would have an 11 pitch at bat, but he did. I mean, he's got a knack for with 2 strikes. He'll shorten up a little bit. That's things that I notice. I notice the fact that we make the routine play, the other team doesn't. I mean, look at Ole Miss's shortstop. Killed them in the Ole Miss series.
South Carolina
this weekend,
shortstop.
South Carolina, they tried 2 or 3 different guys, and they just kept. I mean, there were some routine plays, and we all love like Fajeva's. That play he made was ridiculous. A few weeks ago, he made another one. But the routine play is what wins games. Every team I've ever coached, at the end of the game, why did we lose, guys? Because we didn't make the routine play. I don't ever say, we lost because we didn't make that dive and play up the middle. We lost because we didn't make the routine play, and these guys make the routine play. It's awesome.
Well, and the play that you're talking about with Vahiva is the one where he climbs the ladder and he makes a catch, and then gets the guy, throws behind the guy at second base. And we're going to talk more about that here in a little bit. I want to get Bubba to break that down, but he can even make, and I think Souza to a lesser extent, but up the middle, and we saw this a couple of times yesterday, I think in the first inning, I think, where they can make really hard plays look routine.
Yeah.
And I've been really impressed, especially with Vahiva and his defense, because that was kind of the knock on him coming in from Sacramento State, was that he couldn't play defense. I think what he fielded out there, like in the 9 teens, I think. It wasn't a good number. And he's really turned himself around as a defender. And you put that together with his at-bats, and, he looks like an All-America player. I know Justin LeBron is in this conference too, and he's having a mega season for Alabama. But to me, I can't imagine there's 2 shortstops playing any better nationally than Vahiva is.
Yeah, I think so. And the balls that he gets to, I remember a couple of years ago watching Jalen Battle get the balls, and I'm like, man, this guy's incredible. And, I'm not really comparing the 2 of them yet, but the balls that he gets to, it's incredible how much range he has. And then they turned a couple double plays this week, or yesterday, actually. I didn't think they had a chance of turning them. Just Souza, 4.63. That was incredible. On one of them they had the DH running down the line. I think they knew who they had running down the line, but it's still, that ball wasn't hit hard. But also Ardell at third. Have you watched his lateral movement? He's a big dude. He's really good laterally. Like his first step, his reads on the ground balls, like he always makes the right first step. Do I come get it, get the short hop, or do I drop back and get the big hop? And to that point, you watch the South Carolina shortstop on one play that Souza hit, high chopper, he dropped steps. The minute he dropped steps, I even accidentally said it on the air, safe. Because I knew the minute he dropped steps, he's not going to get Souza out. You got to know that. And there were just so many mental mistakes, I thought, by South Carolina over the weekend. Just little plays like that SEC teams, they shouldn't make those mistakes.
Yeah, I can see that. Dave Van Horn had to say this after the game about the Razorbacks sweeping South Carolina. First time the Razorbacks have swept the Gamecocks since 2013.
I thought overall that we played really well. We turned a couple really nice double plays. Landon gave up a solo home run. I didn't feel like solos were going to beat anybody today. Gave up 2 of them. We're down 2-0, and cut it in half. And it's just, you knew that the ball was going to fly out of the park today. And as a matter of fact, we took our batting practice inside. I didn't want our guys hitting in it. I knew it was going to turn and come out of the northwest pretty good. And Coach Thompson and I talked about it last night after the game. We just go work on some things, work on hitting the ball through the middle and the other way. And I think it worked a little bit. But, overall, just solid games. We played solid all weekend. I don't know if we made an error all weekend. I'm not sure. But, I tell our guys all the time as well that if you pitch a little bit and you play really good defense, you're going to be in the games. And, we have an explosive offense.
So Dave Van Horn on Arkansas beating South Carolina. Explain to people why coaches don't want their hitters taking BP on a windy day like that.
Matt, when the wind's blowing out like that, sometimes you get a little pull happy and you start to fly off the ball. And everyone wants to. It's human nature. When the wind's blowing out like that, you want to see how far you can hit one. And so it tends to change your swing a little bit and just your mental approach. It's not going to mess up your mechanics in one round of BP, but your approach, it can mess up because all of a sudden you're like, hey, I want to see how far I can hit that ball. And next thing you know, your hips flying open, shoulders going off, and your whole direction's off. So I love the fact that DVH and Nate, they have a feel for when to hit on the field and when not to, and I thought they did the right thing.
And yesterday was their, fifth game in 6 days? And so there's some fatigue factor that I think probably plays a role in this too.
Really, people don't realize how much BP can drain you. I remember travel days. Stump Merrill was our manager. We would travel. We'd night game, get up at 4 a.m., fly all day, get to the ballpark, and he'd have us take BP, and we're all like scratching our head like, come on, have a feel. Stump. I mean, come on. Let us go out and maybe take a nap and then go to the yard. But anyway, yeah, I think DVH has a good feel for his players, and I mean, that's why he's the best.
South Carolina, I'm interested to see how things go for them. You know, you look at them, and all of their losses are to really good teams. They got swept by Arkansas, they got swept by Clemson, and they lost twice to OU. All of those are top 10 teams right now nationally. I don't feel like this is a very fundamentally sound baseball team, and I feel like they're going to struggle in conference. But, you know, we'll see. They got a great head coach. We'll see if maybe they can get things turned around. I wasn't real impressed with them this weekend, but with that said, Arkansas beat a team in the manner in which you would think a good to great team, however you think about Arkansas, should beat a team that looks overmatched the way the South Carolina did.
Well, there's so many things, Matt, that they did, and when I'm watching a game, I watch it different probably than a lot of people. Like I watched a pitcher come set and look to second. There's no runner at second. That's mental. I watched first baseman hold a runner on 3-2, 2 outs. Runner at first, you're holding him on. That, you don't hold the runner on.
And I think the
there.
runner was Logan Maxwell, who can't really run right now.
Yeah, and I mean,
I saw that too.
I'm thinking, why? Those are little things, but those little things add up. You don't see a Razorback team doing that. We don't mess those things up. I mean, we might have a blunder on the base paths every once in a while, but I mean, those are things you watch us. We'll screw it up one time, we won't do it again. And I don't know. It's just I'm worried about the South Carolina team. I don't want to get all into the weeds on it, but you know, the starter yesterday, I get he's a Tuesday guy. That's not an SEC starter. He pitched well. He battled out there. The closer, Sweeney, I don't think he's an SEC closer. Change up, he slows his whole body down. Everyone in the ballpark knows it's coming. I don't know. I just think it's going to be a rough year for Paul Maneri. I feel bad for him because I really like the guy.
Talking about you're not going to make the same mistake twice on the bases. There was a play you and I were talking about earlier where yesterday Kozel, on a base hit by Souza into the outfield, Kozel tries to come home from second and he gets thrown out at home plate by the left fielder. That's fine. I like the aggressiveness there. It's a 2-2 game, you know, early innings, third, fourth inning, somewhere in there. But the thing that I noticed was that Van Horn wasn't mad about the play at the plate or weren't sending him or anything like that. He was frustrated with Souza because he didn't go from first to second on the throw. And it ended up costing Arkansas a run in that moment because Thomas in the next at-bat hits a single and Souza's going to score on that from second base. It was interesting to watch him coach on the field, you know, in that moment.
Yeah. And DVH is in the game. I mean, he coaches. He's probably more hands-on than any other coach in the SEC. But you're right about that. Them sending the runner right there, just the right move. The ball was sitting. Left fielder's playing deep. Credit, I think, Stone in left field.
Evan Stone.
He charged the ball hard. Came and got a ground ball, but Souza hit it like 103, 104. I don't know what it was, opposite field. He hit it hard. But Bobby made the right call right there, but Souza's got to go second. But you know what, man? I think that's left over from the day before where he gets thrown out at third. Helfrich doesn't score. If you're a little tentative you can't be tentative on the bases. I mean, your goal is always to get to that next base. You can't be tentative. If you're tentative like that, you start making mistakes. And I think that might be part of that with Souza right there. Next time it happens, he'll go to second.
So Arkansas's 5-1 in the SEC. They're tied with Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia for the best record in the conference. Texas had that big series win over LSU this weekend, and they're off to a great start under Jim Schlossnagle. Razorbacks' best 25-game start in program history. They were tied with the 1982 team for the best 24-game start. 82 team began with a 22-1-1 record, and then they lost their 25th game to Baylor. And then, so this team, the first team to win 23 of their first 25 games. Van Horn was a second baseman on that 82 team, and I asked him yesterday after the press conference, do you see any similarities between the 1982 team and this year's team? And I thought this was a fun soundbite. Any similarities between those teams?
No. we didn't hit homers like this. You know, we were just rolling into aluminum bats back then. Just kidding, but we didn't play the competition back then that we play now. I mean, there were games that were teams that weren't Division I teams, and it's just what you had to do, play people in the area, Division II teams. Teams would come in for over spring break, and I remember we played like 10 or 12 games over spring break at home, playing 2 7-inning games a day, and other teams were using our field up there as all turf, and yeah, that's probably where we won a lot of them. But we had a good team. I think we were like 40-15 or something, but no, it's not as good as this team.
I think he likes this team. You hear him talk, and he speaks about them with a certain confidence. But I wanted to go back to him talking about his 82 team, because you played not too long after that, same era, same coaching staff and everything. I would suspect that you went through some of those marathon weeks where you played however many games to get your game counts in.
Oh, we played a ton, just like DVH said. I was there in '89, and I mean, we played a ton. I remember the doubleheaders. You know, the 7-inning doubleheaders. We get a Snickers and a Coke between the game. That was our. We didn't have a nutritionist back then. We had a Snickers and a Coke, and we went and got them. But yeah, we played a lot of games. You know, in '89, I don't know how our start was. I think we were like 51-16 or something at the end of the year. We had a really good year, but these guys are so much better. And it took me, you know, I used to say, I've told you this before, you know, we get together for deer camp, and, you know, we're all like, yeah. You know, by the end of the night when the cooler's empty, we're like, oh, we kick these guys' butt. Yeah. Now you look at them, you're like, man, these guys are good. I mean, they're so far ahead of where I was at that point. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, they're really good.
I've ended up writing about the 80s and talking about the 80s a lot. I wrote that story last week. Did you see this about the night that they got lights at George Cole Field?
I saw the headline. Sorry, I didn't read the article.
No, that's fine.
I'll go back and read it.
You never do. The 85 team, they played Texas under the lights on March 22nd, 1985, and it was the first time that they had a night game at George Cole Field. And at that time, only Texas and Texas A&M had lights in the Southwest Conference. And Arkansas getting lights that year actually allowed them to get the SWC tournament to come to George Cole Field. They won the SWC tournament that year, beat Texas under the lights again to win their first conference title. And that kind of helped lay a foundation for what your teams were able to do a little bit later in the decade, or in '90, and went back-to-back regular season Southwest Conference championships. I talked to Ralph Krause. He had a walk-off home run against Texas that night to beat them 5-4. I talked to Mark Jackson. He told me that up until that point, that they would be lucky to get 20 to 30 people at the games. It's what we call a parent and girlfriend game, you know, where your parents come and your girlfriends come, and there's probably nobody else in the stands. And that night against Texas, when it was under the lights, they marketed it well. Texas, they were, you know, Greg Swindell started that game for them on the mound. I think he was the number 2 overall draft pick that year, or the year after when Jeff King went. And, you know, so, I mean, they'd won the title in '83. They were runner-up in '84 and '85. This was like the it program in college baseball at that point under Cliff Gustafson. And like 3,200 people came out to the game. And Mark Jackson said that felt like 20,000 people to us, because they were so unaccustomed to seeing that many people at the games. Bobby Smittle, who ends up coming to Razorback games forever, Hog Noxious, he said that he and his buddies went to that game, and it was the first game he ever went to at George Cole Field, and he said, well, this was kind of fun. Let's come back. And, of course, you know, it leads to like 4 decades of him rarely ever missing a game. It was a fun story to tell. And that's one of those – and I was talking to Ralph. I said, you know, you can pinpoint probably 15, 20, 25 of these stair-step moments in Razorback baseball history, the Toops Grand Slam and, you know, the McCann home run against LSU, where the program took a step because of this moment. And that 85 game against Texas was one of them.
You know, to think how far the program's come. I mean, look where we're at now. I remember in '89, we were ranked high. I don't know what, 3, 4, 5 in the country. We don't get a regional because the stadium wouldn't hold enough people. They sent us to Waterbury, Connecticut in '89, and there was like us, Lemoyne. We were the 1 seed. Lemoyne was 8. It was different back then. Arizona State was there. I think Illinois. I don't remember who all was there, but we lost the first game and came back through the losers bracket and won it. Went to Omaha. But to think, you know, we were ranked high, and we ended up having to go to Waterbury, Connecticut,
Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere to play, and it was just crazy, So I mean, to think how far the program's come, and you think it's a long time, but it's not that long to make such a huge jump to what DVH has got the program at now. It's incredible.
I was talking to Norm last week about how lights played such a huge factor in Arkansas's program. There's the 85 deal, and then the seeds were planted for Baum Stadium because of lights. It was an American, this story, an American Legion commander needed lights at a field here locally, and he told Norm, he said, I know there's a man who goes to your church who is a big baseball fan named Charlie Baum. Would you ask him if he would be interested in donating lights to our facility? And so Norm makes the call. He says, he felt bad that it was just kind of a brief phone call. He should have been a little bit more personal. And a couple of weeks, and he never heard anything else till a couple of weeks later, the American Legion commander calls him back and says, hey, wanted to thank you. He wrote a $10,000 check for us to get new lights at this American Legion field. And so Norm said, I took that as an opportunity to reach back out to him. I asked him, do you drink coffee? And he said, yes. And they meet for a coffee. And during that meeting, Charlie Baum says, now, what are you going to do about this stadium now that you're going into the SEC? And he writes him a $250,000 check that morning. And a couple of weeks later, they meet again, another $250,000. And eventually it grows into $1 million that he's given for Razorback baseball. And it's just interesting how lights have played such a huge factor. It helped them take a step forward in the Southwest Conference. And then obviously building Baum Stadium is what set them up for success in the SEC.
Must have been some good coffee, huh?
How many $250,000 checks have you written at a coffee shop?
That's pretty impressive. But you know what it did? I mean, that was kind of the start of it. And I remember when Coach D recruited me, I mean, he was talking about the new stadium for 4 years. I heard about the new stadium.
Which was supposed to be George Cole being totally renovated.
Yeah.
I found a 93 media guide. It was actually when Bob Holt died, I was able to get all of his old media guides from his family. And there was some stuff in there that we didn't have that we were able to put in our in our collection. And those things are they're great to go back and be able to cite. And it's kind of fun to go back and look at old media guides because like your home address is listed, your phone number is listed. None of that's listed anymore.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. We won't even go there. But in '93 they actually had a rendering of what the stadium was going to look like at George Cole. And, obviously they end up going a different direction and the best direction they could have ever gone.
Right, I think so. Because where George Cole was, we're limited. You got the hyper building out there. There's just no real room for expansion. And then parking. It was crazy. I remember my dad, Matt, would come to every game. He'd pull up in his old Dodge pickup and he'd park down the third baseline in the same spot. No parking pass, nothing. Just pulled up there every game, and that's where he parked. It was just simple.
Do you have a Ram?
Nope, it was an old Dodge,
Okay.
like an old. I mean, it was his favorite truck. He drove it everywhere.
I was going to say because I love the old Rams. They had that little Ram decal on the front that you could kind of flip up and then pop back. And
No, this was older than that.
Okay.
My mom hated it, but Dad loved it. She didn't like riding in it, but Dad loved it.
All right, so Arkansas is number 2 this week, at least, like I said, in the polls that have been released. I haven't looked at perfect game. They've had Arkansas quite a bit lower. I made a joke yesterday. I said if Arkansas wins the national championship, they might move up to number 2 in the perfect game poll with the way they've been ranking the Razorbacks early this year. Tennessee kept number 1. Do you think Tennessee should be the number 1 team over Arkansas? Because I kind of do. They went 2-2 last week. Lost to East Tennessee State in 10 innings at home, but then they go on the road and they beat we've talked about Alabama, how they're kind of like the February and March All-Stars. This looks like a different Alabama team under Rob Vaughn than maybe what they were under Bohannon before him. I think the fact that Tennessee, you don't get dinged. I guess where I'm going with this is you don't get dinged for midweek losses too much, and they did have a good series win this week. And I don't know that Arkansas wants to be number 1. I don't know that you want to carry that burden. At some point, they may have to wear it if they keep playing like this, but I don't know that they really want that.
I don't think so. I don't think it matters yet, Matt. I mean, think about the polls in the beginning, the preseason polls. A&M won Virginia 2. Well, where are they at now?
A&M is unranked. And 0-6 in the SEC.
That's incredible to think about. I mean, and their pitching. I looked at their pitching stats. Their pitching is not bad, but they just can't score.
And they were supposed to have like the lineup of the century.
Yeah. You look at Tennessee, though, their pitching is ridiculous. Hitting is really good. I mean, scoring a lot of runs, not allowing many. But you know what Tennessee's weakness is their defense. Their defense is their weakness. They're going to kick the ball around a little bit. They're going to make some mistakes. And I think when it comes down to it, the team that plays better defense is going to end up winning.
It's just the defense gets so overlooked, I feel like, because it's like you don't notice the defense until it's gone wrong.
Right.
And I don't feel like enough people appreciate whenever you're basically taking runs away from the other team.
So, and this isn't a knock against Vitella. I don't know how much time they spend on like the fundamentals. Like I know DVH is everything starts with the fundamentals of baseball. I don't know how many coaches still do that. It's funny. I was talking to Paul Maneri yesterday, and we kind of got off on that, old school. He said that he's a dinosaur. He's a dying breed. The old school type coach that preaches the fundamentals. And I think him and DVH are a lot alike. By the way, that dude can talk, but he was awesome. I love talking to him. Listening to him talk.
I made a comparison last week. I said him to South Carolina reminds me a lot of Calipari to Arkansas basketball.
That's
in
good.
That you've got this Hall of Fame national championship coach who maybe it didn't end well for him, with the place that he built up. But then he goes to a program that feels like it should be at the top and, isn't too far removed from having, success. And so it's just kind of interesting. I'd kind of hoped to talk to him about that, and I never got a chance to this weekend. Okay, I know numbers make your head spin, so just hold on. Gotcha. Hold on to the table because I'm about to throw a lot of numbers at you right here. Arkansas had, or in 5 straight SEC games, Arkansas's had double-digit runs. Okay, 4 and 12. Do you see my lead after the game the other night? I was proud of this one. I said runs have become like eggs for Arkansas baseball, not cheap and by the dozen. So I was proud of that one. But 5 straight games, double-digit runs. First time that's happened in SEC play for the Razorbacks since 1997.
Wow.
In 97, they actually had 6 games in a row. They scored 30 against South Carolina in a game, 11, 15, and 17 against Georgia, and 14 and 12 against Ole Miss. So it's the first time since 97 where they've had double-digit runs. But here's what was really interesting to me. Corey Stewart, who runs the Stu Hog YouTube account, this guy, he is a baseball nerd, and I think he would wear that as a term of endearment. He told me that this team has got the highest scoring. It's the highest scoring team under Van Horn through 25 games. Arkansas averaging 9.6 runs per game. Previously, Van Horn's highest scoring team was 07, and that team was averaging 8.8 runs per game. So this one almost a full run better per game. But here's where it gets really interesting. That team, because there was no run roll, had 19 more innings at the plate in 25 games. And so if you break it down by inning, this year's team is averaging 1.16 runs, whereas the 07 team was averaging 0.97.
It's impressive.
Is your head spinning yet?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking Rain Man in my mind. I'm thinking it's the way you'd kill me with all the numbers.
I got more if you want them.
But no, I love it. Keep going.
Okay, here's one more. Arkansas's averaging 10.8 runs per game in conference play. Had 13 more hits Sunday. They've had double-digit hits, I think, in every SEC game. I think they even had double-digit hits in the loss to Ole Miss in game 1. They're averaging just under 14 hits per game in SEC play. I haven't seen that in I don't know when.
No, and it goes back to, by the way, bear with me on the allergies. I have like the worst allergies, so I'm sucking
I've got some
it up.
Zyrtec in my bag over there if you want to pop a couple during the break.
I might need to. But, DVH always talks about, in the SEC, it's hard to string together hits. I talked about this on the broadcast yesterday during the game. This team's got the ability to string together hits like no other team I remember in the past. And when they don't get a hit, they at least have a really good at bat, foul off a bunch of pitches, maybe draw a walk, maybe get a hit, maybe make an out, but they still see 9, 10 pitches. I mean, it's crazy the way this lineup works.
You talked about that inning with Maxwell and Cahillo yesterday. And there were some other hitters, obviously, in that inning. They fouled off 18 pitches and made that kid throw 42 pitches in the inning. It's incredible.
Hey, my favorite inning, though, I think is Saturday's game against Taylor. Or not Taylor, Jake McCoy.
The 8-run inning.
The 8-run inning with 2 outs. Mm-hmm. 2 quick outs on a couple pitches, and then all of a sudden hit by pitch, home run. I mean, it's crazy. Just
it's hard to keep all these big innings, like because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, like just think about the last week plus. 8-run inning against Ole Miss, a couple 4-run innings against Ole Miss. You had the 12-run inning against ORU in the midweek. 8-run inning against South Carolina, 7-run inning against South Carolina. I mean, it's like these guys can strike fast. Even Friday night, did the run roll? Did it just kind of sneak up on you?
Yeah,
because it's 7-2, and 8 pitches later, the game is over.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Just happened like that.
Yeah.
So, but I think the thing that's most impressive about Saturday, about facing McCoy, is he had good stuff. So he got 2 quick outs.
Do you think he was their best pitcher?
Yeah, I did. I thought he was. I don't know. They've got a few guys that are all right. They threw, I think Russell. I liked Russell. I thought he had good stuff on Saturday. They brought him in. But McCoy, he ends up throwing 46 pitches, doesn't even get out of the inning, and he had gotten 2 quick outs. That's a team. That's a good team that can do that in the first inning. What we were able to do that day. So yeah, it's impressive.
All right, we got a lot more to come here on the podcast. We're going to talk about Brent Iredale's grand slam yesterday that led to the soundbite of the year. We're going to talk about Vahiva Aloy's big play. A lot more coming up, but first, a word from our sponsors.
At Kindle King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kindle King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kindle King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Hey, welcome back. I want to tell you can get the latest breaking news on all Razorback sports at wholehogsports.com. Most in-depth source for all Arkansas sports, analysis, latest in recruiting, unique stories on all your favorite teams, Bubba, even baseball. You can read it there. Subscribe today at wholehogsports.com.
I read the headlines, and yeah, things are a little busy this time of year, Matt.
I totally
you
understand.
You need to send me Cliff Notes.
I totally understand about being busy. This was a wild weekend trying to because I do a lot of administrative stuff too, and so like getting our guys home from Providence and then getting flights and credentials and everything booked for San Francisco and trying to cover a baseball game at the same time. It made for a lot of fun on Saturday. So Brent Iredale had, I thought, it's hard to say whenever they have so many runs, the swing of the weekend. But when you think about kind of how he's been struggling a little bit in the last couple of weeks, and it was a huge swing in the game. I mean, Justin Thomas puts Arkansas up 4-2 with a 2-run home run in the 8th yesterday, or 6-4. I'm sorry, 6-4 with a 2-run home run, and then Arkansas loads the bases, in part because South Carolina intentionally walks Cahillo Aloy with first base open. Logan Maxwell put down a good bunt to move the base runners over for the first out of the 8th. Cahillo goes to first. And you remember Iredale, and you'll hear Van Horn talk about this, in the same situation at Ole Miss, rolled over pitch, double play. Even yesterday, he got a run home with a sac fly, but he was that far away from hitting a grand slam earlier in the game. And so it's a grand slam, 344 feet off of the Hunt Center. We got 2 sound bites to play for you here. First one is from Dave Van Horn to talk about that hit for Brent Iredale, and then the second one's the one you really want to hang around for.
Up, and one day it may be the middle or the top, and then it's the bottom, and it's just like last weekend. Ole Miss, they walk. I think it was Logan Maxwell to load the bases, and Iredale hits the ball decent, but he hits into a double play, so it worked. Today they did it, and he hit a grand slam, and but for 2 weeks he carried us. I mean, he was hitting home run and giving us leads, and you can't expect him to keep that pace up. But then other guys picked him up, so. you're never going to have 9 hitting at a time. But if you can have 5 guys hitting, the other guys working and working the count, even though they're not getting their hits, it's going to make it better for everybody.
And things went well enough for Iredale this weekend. I know that there were some times where he, felt like he should have come through, but I mean, a bad weekend and you end up with 8 RBI. That's I think a lot of people will take that.
I think so, and he struck out 3 times yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
People, but when you hit the grand slam like that, people forget the 3 strikeouts. It's not what you hit; it's when you hit. And he has a knack for that big hit at the right time. But what's crazy, Matt, is the ball he hit before his sac fly was 97 miles an hour off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
The home run, the grand slam, 97 miles an hour off the bat, almost to the exact
Like
same
some
place.
spot.
Yeah, so. On a normal day, that probably doesn't go out, but it's at least a sac fly. So he did his job. So it's good. He went up there, got a first pitch slider, knew that's probably what he's going to get, and hit it to right. Good job.
And it was a no doubter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it bounced high off of the Hunt Center. Okay, now keep in mind that Iredale's from Australia. Okay, and they do things a little bit different than we do. So this was fun. I asked him a question. I said, I think you hear the question here, so we'll just play it. Intentionally walk somebody in front of you. Like what's the mindset?
It's like you like up basically. Like
Brent, you're not supposed to say that.
it's my turn to show you what I can do basically, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Today it worked out, and I'm extremely happy it did.
The soundbite of the year from Brett Iredale.
Okay, it's not going to get any better than that.
No.
Who was that said?
It was Vital Shoes. He said you can't say that.
No, that's awesome. But you know what? That's the mindset I want out of a hitter.
He's
That's
got some
absolutely
confidence.
what I want to hear.
What was the quote? Because I sent you this quote, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks back. He had another one where it was like, basically, it was when they were batting him behind Cajillo.
Yeah.
He said, if you get through them, you got to see me. And nobody wants to see me, or something like that. I mean, there is a confidence from him that I think is just refreshing, maybe the word.
Well, and didn't you ask him a question once about what's your thoughts when you step in the box? What are you
and
thinking?
we can't repeat what he said.
Don't be a
Yeah.
kitty cat.
Something like that. Yeah. It went something like that. So big weekend though for Iredale. Even and I asked him too. He said I'm seeing the ball well. He said the hits just aren't coming. But I when you hear him say that, it feels like maybe he's about to break out of this. You look at the SEC only stats. He's down at the very bottom in terms of batting average.
Well, and so I talked to him a little bit after Saturday's game, and he said the same thing. And I said, but are you seeing the ball well? He's like, yeah, I'm seeing it great. And I said, you're fine then. I mean, he actually, you look at some of the pitches, they actually made some really good pitches on him this weekend. It's funny how, like, some guys, in the course of a weekend, get more pitches over the middle of the plate. Mm-hmm. I didn't think Brent got that many good pitches to hit over the weekend. I thought they did a really good job running 2-seamers in on him, elevating a fastball. They did a real good job of locating against him, and I thought he took some good swings.
Talking about good sound bites, Justin Thomas gave you one on the field yesterday, calling the lower third of the bottom third of the order the caboose gang.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. So he's I just asked him a question about the lower half of the lineup. How when you're in the SEC, there's very few teams. When you get down to the bottom of the lineup, especially with our pitching staff, I mean, we tend to dominate the lower half of the lineup, and I don't know there's a better 3, 7, 8, 9 guy in the conference right now. And it was cool what he said. So and they take pride in that too.
Helfrich, Souza, and Thomas combined over the weekend against South Carolina went 14 of 34. That's 412 from your bottom 3 hitters in the lineup. There's been so much talk about the top 6 and how well they're doing. All 6 of those guys are still batting over 350 going into this week. If you can get those bottom 3 going, and I know it's never going to happen where you got all 9 going at the same time.
Right.
If it does, I mean, that would be something to behold. I think your head would explode watching that in the booth. But I mean, you get those bottom 3 going, and all of a sudden there's not as big of a hole at the bottom of the lineup. I mean, my goodness, the sky's the limit for this offense.
I mean, think about it. You can't pitch around anybody because the next guy's going to bite you, and it doesn't matter. I'm one top to bottom, and even Sousa's at bats are getting better. He's fouling off pitches. He's not chasing right
3
now.
3 walks yesterday.
Yeah. He's that close to the fastball. And I say all the time, if you're not on the fastball, you're not on anything. You got to be on that fastball, and he's slowly starting to catch up. I think he's trying to he's so worried about chasing the off-speed pitch down that he's a little bit late on fastballs, but you can see him getting closer every game, and that's good to see.
Ryder Helfrich this time last week didn't have a multi-hit game. He's got 3 now.
Yeah.
Just kind of crazy how that works. Dave Van Horn asked him yesterday about the bottom of the lineup, and this is what he had to say.
The bottom of the order, has been really, I think all weekend did a pretty good job. I know that, Ryder had 7 hits on the weekend. I think he had 2, 3, and 2 today, a couple home runs. He's in the 7 hole. Souza got a few hits, but he also walked a few times, scored some runs, and then obviously Thomas got a couple hits on Friday. Can't remember what about yesterday, and then today a couple more. It was, it was good because those 8, 9 hole hitters can really run. They're a threat on the bases too. So if they're on for Davalin or Aloy, it might help them get maybe a better pitch or two, or we might steal a base. But end of the order was really big this weekend.
Dave Van Horn won his 1,277th career game at the NCAA level yesterday. That tied Elliott Avent at North Carolina State for 3rd among active coaches. And I went back and looked it up, Bubba. When Avent left here a few years ago with that super regional win, he was actually 27 wins ahead of Van Horn. So Van Horn has had plus 27 on him in the 3+ seasons since then.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I mean, to put that many wins together. But if you ask Dave, what's he going to say? I got good coaches and good players.
Not about him. Paul Maneri, by the way, is number 1 in active coaches. Danny Hall at Georgia Tech is number 2. Van Horn and Avent are tied for 23rd all time in NCAA wins. Pretty remarkable how Dave is moving up that leaderboard. Okay, so I want to talk real quick about this Vahiva Aloy play on Saturday. This was, for my money, the defensive play of the year so far for Arkansas. You think about the other defensive plays that you'd probably put in this category, the 2 over-the-shoulder Willie Mays-style catches that Vahiva's had, the one on opening day where he turns around and throws to home plate, and that's a huge play in that game. I'd probably say, too, Davalin's catch against, who was it, TCU? Yeah, I think it was TCU down in Arlington. Took away a home run.
Yeah.
That one would be up there. There might be another one or two that I'm forgetting, but this was phenomenal. Here's the play. I think we're going to hear Brett Dolan's call on this as well.
But nonetheless, there are guys behind you to make some plays. That one is line. Caught by Aloy. Back to second. Double play. Spectacular. Robbing a base hit and somehow doubling off.
So I want to keep, hey, Sydney, if you will, play this again with the sound off. But I want to get your thoughts on what you see here from Vahiva. And Sydney, by the way, on this clip, they'll show a replay too, so just play the full clip. But what do you see here where he makes the catch? Number one, just the ability to make the catch is incredible. But then the presence of mind to turn around and throw back to second, I think, is what really sets this play apart.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so when the ball's hit, lefty hits it, it's a line drive. He knows it's going to slice, so he's got to move a little bit to his right, jump, catch, and basically hit the ground ready to throw. Just the awareness of what the ball's going to do, and this the whole situation. I mean, if I always talk about frames of a camera, frame. If he's off one frame right there, that dude's safe at second, or he doesn't get the catch. I mean, it was remarkable. Because you think about where the ball was hit, it was kind of to his right, and he kind of had to go back a step or two, then jump. It's just a great play. But now, I still say opening day play was better. Over-the-shoulder catch, turning, fading away, making that throw to the plate. So I think that's his second best play, in my opinion. So we disagree.
It's your opinion, man.
Yeah.
His dad, his and Kahil's dad was actually in the booth with Brett and Troy Eklund. I think the half inning or maybe the two inning or basically shortly before this happened. Wouldn't it have been great if his dad had been in there when he makes this play?
So I'm looking up at the monitor and I see this guy and he looks like The Rock in there with him. And so I texted Brett. I'm like, who is that in there? I didn't know it was the Aloys.
Yeah, he's a pretty good baseball player too at Hawaii from what I understand.
Looks like he can still play.
Yeah. He taught them well.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. What do we think about Arkansas's rotation? Because Gackel's not. I mean, he's struggling right now, and Dave even said to Phil Elson on the pregame show yesterday that they may have to make an adjustment there to the rotation. It felt to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but when Aiden Jimenez came in after Gackel on Saturday, that might have been an audition for him to potentially step into that number 2 role until Gage Wood gets back, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Okay, so I go back to it, and you think about his last start. He was struggling a little bit.
We talking about Gackel.
Gackel had a big double play to get out of that inning, and then he cruised after that, or got way better after that. I think if they make that a play, if Aloy comes up, throws to second base with 2 outs, Sousa's late getting to the bag. If he throws across, gets the easy out at first, that inning's over. He's out of there. Maybe he gets a chance to get going again. And so I wish that play would have been made, because one more batter after that, he's out of the game. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do. I get it. I was thinking about Chase Burns at Tennessee a year or 2 ago. Remember, he was a really good, I think it was their closer. And then they moved him to the rotation. It didn't go real great. And then they moved him back to the bullpen, and that's when their season turned around that year. And I almost wonder if maybe Arkansas tries something like that with Gackel, just to see. I mean, obviously they're not getting what they want out of Christian Fouch right now. It would add a right-hander to the back end, and it's in an area that we know that Gabe has had success in the past. The one thing about this team is, whether it be Jimenez or Gage Wood, whenever he's able to come back, or Colin Fisher, maybe even Carson Wiggins, there's no shortage of pitchers who could potentially start, and that's not every team can say that.
Yeah. So I don't like excuses. I thought Gackel got squeezed.
Really?
I thought he threw some really good fastballs in on the righties that he didn't get, and I go off his body language. He's not a guy that shows a lot of body language. He thought those were strikes. I asked Helfrich what he thought, and I'll leave it to that. I'm not gonna repeat it, but I don't know. I just thought he got squeezed. But here, I've told you before, I view everything from the lens of the batting. From the plate, the batter's box, and I wish he would use his curveball more. I think everything is fastball, slider, and I think he's best when he's using that slower breaking ball, low 80s. Then he can tunnel that high fastball, 95, 96 off the top of that, and then he can go to the bottom of the zone with the fastball and tunnel the slider off of that. I wish he would do that more, and I don't know why. I mean, look, far be it me to question any of the pitch calling, because they've got all the numbers. They know what works and what doesn't. I'm just saying, that's just me sitting back in the booth, picturing myself in the batter's box, thinking, wow, if he just throws me fastball, slider, he's doing me a favor. Now, if he goes fastball, slider, curve, and then I know there's a changeup in there, all of a sudden my game plan is different.
And this isn't to make excuses, but you sit back and you kind of wonder about, okay, everything that happened, what might have caused this. He was sitting in the dugout for like 40 minutes during that long first inning, and that a lot of times can affect a pitcher too.
Absolutely. That's the first thing I said when he came out. I said, man, I hope he's been in there throwing plow balls or doing something. I mean, I guess they could go up the tunnel and toss a little bit, but I'm sure they have something to keep them loose, because that's a long time.
Well, we saw McGuire against ORU, similar deal, where Arkansas had a 12-run inning. I think he sat for about 35 minutes and came back out, and he was okay. But again, it just different pitchers, different lineups, different day, different wind. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can go into that. Real quick, Arkansas now has won 11 straight SEC series at home and 23 of their last 24. That is an incredible stat. What do you think makes them so good at home? They're 18-0 this year.
Okay, so there's something about being at home, and it's your happy place. You've got your routine. Baseball players are creatures of habit. Okay, so as a hitter, you step up to the plate. Nothing feels better than your home batter's box. To a pitcher, the mound feels better at home. You've just got your regular routine, and then I think the huge thing about that is you've got Baumwalker fans. And I think this team, some teams have played better on the road. I think they've kind of tightened up at home. I think this team really feeds off the crowd. I really do.
It was a good crowd this weekend, but you think about it was spring break. Students weren't there. A lot of people paying attention to basketball. In a couple of weeks, it could really jump up a notch.
Okay, did you notice Saturday's game? It wasn't very loud.
It's because everybody's watching the game, the basketball game.
We were looking around, and you could see everyone on their phones, and I'm like, there were little things that happened that usually they're really in tune to, and the crowd didn't really respond. And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
we know what they're doing. But the minute McIntyre, because it was funny when McIntyre comes out.
Biggest ovation of his life.
And he's like, man, he's going to be throwing 105.
Yeah, so, I mean, real quick before we get out of here, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Zach Root and his complete game on Friday night. It's easy to overlook that with everything that happened after that point. And then I thought Beidelshees yesterday gave up a couple of solo home runs. He got hit hard in the first inning. Long fly out to center. Petrie hit 111 up the middle for a single, but it looked like he got better as the game went on.
He did, and so I asked him a question the week before about, you can tell, I mean, you've got all the numbers, and that say a lot, but the biggest telltale sign of how good your stuff is the reaction of the hitters.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of worded it wrong week before last when I asked Zach about that. I said, look, I go off of what the hitters look like, and I kind of put him in a bad situation. I didn't want to make bulletin board material or anything, but against South Carolina, I kind of said the same thing. I was like, look, you can tell by the reaction of the hitters, and I said you had them baffled tonight.
Mm-hmm.
They were just caught in between all night. They were late on fastballs, early on off speed. They just didn't know what to do. And he's got 4 pitches he can throw over the plate at any time. It doesn't matter with him if you're 2-0 or 0-2. I mean, it's hard because you don't know what's coming.
Arkansas and Missouri State tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at Baum-Walker Stadium. This ends a 6-game homestand for the Razorbacks. We'll have coverage on our website this afternoon, looking ahead to that game between the Razorbacks and the Bears. First time in like 40-something years Keith Gutton won't be in the dugout for an Arkansas-Missouri State game. Bubba, appreciate you being here. We appreciate you all being with us today as well. Hope we see you at our website, wholehogsports.com, and we'll see you on our podcast tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.